Hi, everyone. Thanks again for coming to the Competitive Advantage Talks presented by Kager, also known as Craft Analytics Group. My name is Adam Beisman, and I'm an MBA student at MIT Sloan. It's my pleasure to introduce our presentation today, From Engagement to Activation in the NHL, presented by Wiland. Please join me in welcoming Curran Racklin, Head of Data and Analytics at the NHL. And after his speech, I'll walk around with the microphone for any questions that you might have. Curran.
Great. Thank you very much. I didn't think anybody would be here so early. I'm proud of you. I appreciate your bright eyes and bushy tails and the light of God's own truth shining in my eyes right now. I can't see any of you. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we use data and the information and insights that we get from Wiland to try to improve our fan experience when they interact with the NHL and our 32 clubs. The first thing, a little background, the one thing I wanted to kind of give you a foundation on is that the first step in rethinking how we approach fan engagement a few years ago was to build that kind of base layer, that foundation, which we call BLADE, which is, you'll see the logo in a second, it's in all caps, it's not an acronym, it should be. I'm open to ideas. Right now I'm running with Mr. Bettman, let's analyze data for everyone, but I'm not so creative. So, the counterpart on the hockey ops side is the EDGE player and puck tracking system, so you can probably see a theme here, also not an acronym, but sharp. The construction of the BLADE data warehouse has taken several years. We're bringing in right now over 900 sources of data, and the specific data points can be measured in 11-digit numbers. So we're really packing a lot of information. I thought it'd be helpful to provide a little context about what our team does. Fan Engagement, Analytics, and Research, a department named solely for the acronym that it creates, really covers a lot of different areas. Customer fan acquisition is kind of a sterile term, so we use growth marketing, leveraging paid media and some of our fan engagement programs to expose more people to our game, to further engage our already avid fan base, but really to try to spread the education and understanding of our game to grow our fan base. And it's one thing to acquire that data, it's quite another to operationalize it. And the team also handles all the data data engineering for those 900 sources of data, bringing it into BLADE, and that kind of control allows us to be extremely flexible in how we're building our products, but also in how we're working with our 32 clubs who all may have different preferences on how to handle and share data. Once we've got that data, we've ETL'd it into BLADE, studying it, learning it. How do we actually get this information out? Analytics, analysis, predictive and descriptive modeling are key parts of this, whether it's talking about our fan related data, our ticketing related data, social media, digital, a variety of things. We also have a syndicated research portion as well, really trying to understand the broader universe of humanity as well as specific sports fandom, and then how we compare that broad-based information with our more specific and applied data in BLADE. And finally, what do we have to show for it? What is that output? On the fan engagement team handles the fan-facing output, so our digital efforts, All-Star Fan Vote, Bracket Challenge. If you come to one of our tentpole events, Winter Classic Stadium Series, supporting the fan fairs and the fan engagement in real life in person, which is at a league level, not something we get to do too often. And then the strategy and analytics team in our group oversees the club strategy. So working with clubs in a consultative fashion in revenue strategy, ticketing, premium seating, digital and social analytics, as I mentioned, engineering for all of our clubs. So the first step in this is identifying our opportunity. Knowing who our fans are. It's critically important to know who our fans are. And by that, I mean we need to understand how they engage with us, what their interests are, what drives them, what's the right content for them, what are they passionate about. And that can mean anybody from someone who's been a full season ticket holder for 50 years, and it could be someone who's a younger Gen Z fan who kind of loosely follows a team but is a little more interested in the off-the-ice content and the player personalities. It's obviously those are going to be two different messages and two different types of engagements for those fans. And the more that we can learn about those fans and their preferences, the better that their experience is going to be. So before we learn anything, we really don't know what they're looking for, what their interests are. They're like aliens. We have evidence of their existence and that they're engaging with us, but we really don't know how and we don't know what they want. And then we study this. And the more that we can learn about our fans' preferences, and then we study them, and then we learn that it's actually not an alien. It's a man who used to like basketball, but for the last 30 years has been one of our most passionate hockey fans. We use the word engagement a lot. It means different things to different people. When I say that the league is focused on the future of engagement, it's something different than when my mother lectures me on my future of engagement. Fans means different things to fans as well. Trying to know what matters to them. Do they want to watch 40 games a year in person? It's a lot. People have lives. They want to watch it on TV. They want to play games. They just like checking the scores. They follow, but they're not there. It's really understanding all of those different pieces and what drives them so that we can then provide the experience and the content that they're looking for. Whether they're voting All-Star game most years, quarter century team this year, creating a bracket and the bracket challenge in the playoffs with their favorite team to win, there's different levels of engagement. Whether they're someone who spends thousands of dollars a year on merchandise on NHL Shop, or not really a fan, doesn't really like sports, but has a couple of kids that do and love to have a new third jersey every year from the shop. These are different fans experiencing things differently. Not one is more or less important than the other. It's just about different engagement and what matters to them. It's also critical for our marketing partners, for our fans' experience with our marketing partners, as our sponsors. We want to make sure that fans are not getting bombarded with information that isn't relevant to them and that they don't care about, that doesn't really apply to them. One fan may benefit more from hearing a message from Honda at the All-Star game, perhaps, the Honda All-Star game. Another fan may have a higher level of interest in Fastenal products, the official maintenance retail, and operations partner of the NHL. It's different fans, different messaging. If you just bought a car yesterday, you probably don't want to hear about an opportunity to get a car today, unless you want a lot of cars. And obviously, our partners want to get in front of the right fans as well. We want to make sure that we can provide an audience of opportunity to our partners so that they're talking to the fans that they're looking to speak to, the fans that want to hear from that kind of partner, and not bombing people with spam or messages that don't apply, because that has a negative effect on our partners as well. Fans who vote in the All-Star game, much less overlap than you would assume with fans who participate in the bracket challenge. That means that there's two different types of fans, there's two different types of behaviors, there's preferences, those habits, and that we want to work with our partners to understand that maybe the All-Star game is a better opportunity for you, maybe the vote, maybe the bracket challenge is a better opportunity for you. It really depends, and I think that the outcome of all of this is we have a better experience for our partners, a better experience for our fans, and then therefore a better outcome for the league. So, admittedly, I may have been a little hungry when I made this slide, and they don't let you change it. But we're going to talk about the data donuts as we go on this journey with a metaphor together. What are the data donuts? They are the delicious little pieces of information that help us engage and provide a better experience for our fans, but they're missing something. We're not sure what's the hole, we're not sure what the filling is, but we don't quite know what we know. We want to know what we don't know. What is that hole? What is missing? Finding those data elements. Once we identify the right donuts, we need to find the missing information, the missing filling. Maybe we know that they buy 4 tickets to a game and 4 sweaters for the family to go, but we don't know that their kids participate and learn to play our first shift youth hockey programs. We don't know how else they engage with us digitally. We don't necessarily know that how often they're watching when they're home. We want to fill those gaps in our knowledge to help create a better picture, because once we get a better picture and we understand what that filling is, we can understand and provide a better product experience for our fans. And I realize that metaphor is a little, convoluted. So what are the gaps in our understanding? How do we fill those missing elements? And then once we fill them, what do we learn and how do we apply it? And that's kind of the guiding principle of everything that we're doing. What don't we know? How do we know it? Once we know it, what do we do? So to that end, why Wiland? Why did we start working with them? other than the charming personality of everybody we worked with, or at least one of you, we wanted to learn more, and really they helped us to better understand where we should be focusing. So why do we want to work with them in the FanSignals product? As the slide says, it's intelligent. These data solutions, understanding what we're looking for and helping us better identify what those missing cream fillings are. What is the information we don't know? They help us approach the problem in a few different ways. Helping identify unknown fans. How do we identify fans that we don't personally know? We know how many people have engaged with us directly in the last several seasons at the league level. We know how many people on the club side, for the most part, have engaged directly. But what about people who don't engage directly? What about people who play ESPN fantasy hockey or Yahoo fantasy hockey, who watch on television over the air? Or whatever those options are, we need to understand that there is a segment of fans that we don't know about. And helping to understand how those fans engage with us and what they're looking for allows us to create an experience for those fans that's better, even though it can't be the hyper-personalized experience we always talk about these things, because we don't necessarily know who they are. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Augmenting information that we have on our fans. What is the extra pieces that we can do to build that out? We know who they are. We know how they engage with us. We know what they want, but not everything. Pulling those pieces together helps us provide a better experience for them and also communicate in a way that actually works better for them. And then cross-tabbing those behaviors and demos. We're looking at behaviors. And when we think of behavior, we're thinking of that generally as how people engage with us. Did you vote? How often? Did you buy? How much? Do you go? When? But also looking at that across demographic and psychographic behaviors. What are the trends? What are you looking for? What have you indicated interest in? And this is the information that we're able to collect so that we can provide people with a message that matters to them. Improving our modeling. The league works across all, with our clubs, across a lot of different data sources of building models to better understand who our fans are. Predictive behavior, what are they most likely to do? Maybe you've never voted in the All-Star game, but next year we can learn, we say, actually, you're probably more likely to vote in the All-Star game. Last year, we ran an experiment where we email everybody. We tell everyone playoffs are coming, bracket challenge, sign up. Not everybody does. Not everybody we email signs up. How do we get that message out again? There's got to be a segment of people that are going to respond more, that are going to be more likely to engage. How do we do that? How do we not spam people who are never going to want to do it? So we pulling all this data together that we have, we created a test segment. Let's hit these people with a custom message, with custom graphics, with custom information that is specifically targeted to them, even though they haven't created a bracket in the last 3 seasons. Who's likely to do it? And it worked. We were 35 times. We had 35 times the registration rate of that cluster than we did against the control, because we were able to target those people and understand that they are more likely to vote. And that means that there was a lot of people that I didn't have to send spam to. They're not going to unsubscribe. We're not going to get in their face. I hate those emails, and so we really try hard to make sure that everything is relevant. And then lastly is the prescriptive data analysis, so certainly my favorite kind of PDA. This is a real difference maker for us. It's about identifying our opportunities as well as our partner opportunities. Knowing, we use fan clusters. We provide our own league-generated fan clusters to Wiland, and we work on studying each one of those segments to understand where those opportunities are. Those opportunities can be based off of behavior with us, their likelihood to engage. They can be opportunities based off of some of the data we're going to show you in a second that Wiland provides that says maybe they're more likely to be interested in certain kind of products with certain kinds of our partners. Or maybe there's a segment that's probably not going to engage once. They bought one shirt once 5 years ago. It clearly wasn't for them. Probably not worth wasting their time. So how do we learn more about that? And these PDAs have been really helpful for us because it's about efficiency. We move faster. We can get this information, and we don't have to spend time doing the stuff we shouldn't be doing that doesn't have a benefit. But it also helps us save money because we don't have to end up buying a lot of information or data that won't help us and won't be a good use of time. And that's money and time, because obviously we get all this data. We've got to build the ETL process. We've got to build it in. It's not a quick process. And so making sure that, that we are smart about how we're doing this. And then, what are we getting out of this? So we've touched on some of these already, but what is the end result? The first is identifying our partner opportunities, as we mentioned. This means our league's opportunities. We have categories that are open. We have categories that might be able to be split. The cliche financial services category, or is it bank, credit card, saving account, investment account? Maybe one, maybe the other. Understanding where those opportunities are for us and our partners. The other piece is that it's not just our potential partners, but it's understanding our existing partners and providing them with a benefit to know who they should be getting in front of. When our partners work with us on platforms that specifically speak to the right audience for them, they get more out of their partnerships, and our fans get more out of our partners. And our clubs really benefit from this as well. Putting together models and fan persona profiles for the clubs that we share with them, we can help them at a macro level, which is the kind of understanding their audience as a whole, or the micro level, which is understanding specific fan level details and data, their season ticket members, the people who come into their building. The support, the help, God knows I need it. We don't have the staff size that I would like. I've said that at every job I've ever had. But with the help from Wiland has been hands-on to help us better understand the data, make sure we're getting this, and honestly save us hours of work, which we otherwise might not be able to get done. And lastly, here is kind of the future of this. The roadmap, Wiland's future roadmap, much like ours at the league, is international. How do we expand? How do we get in front of more fans? We've been doing more with our Global Series games and really trying to engage more with fans. Wiland's roadmap there helps us as well, certainly across domestic, which for us is the US and Canada, and international. So just wanted to show kind of we don't have 6 hours, we have 3.5 minutes. So I just wanted to go through kind of examples of some of the data we're getting. We've talked about what we're looking for, we've talked about how it helps, but let's see what this actually is. Basic demographics, right? Basic demography, just understanding broad spectrum of where people are. I guess I should note that this data is not real. But the basic demographics of this, how do we understand who those people are, the nature of households and families, how to engage with people, etc. Financial information, propensity to spend, how are you investing, how much financial capacity is there? What is the likelihood for someone to buy a ticket? What is their ability to buy a ticket or a sweater or anything, merchandise? Propensity and financial capacity are two different things, right? I have a high propensity to buy a Ferrari. I do not have a financial capacity to buy a Ferrari. And so I'm probably not a good person for Ferrari to target unless they want to talk a comp strategy. Predictive behavior. It covers both whether or not someone wants to vote, for example, for the All-Star game, but how likely also they might be to shop at the big box widget store. We find we have a large segment of fans that like to shop at the widget store, then we should be talking to new widget partners. Maybe it's all of our fans, maybe it's some of our fans, maybe it's some of the clusters, and that's part of going back to the PDAs is understanding specific subsets of our audience, how do they engage with us, and then how do we get more messaging in front of them that's relevant, especially for our partners. Finding that right audience for our partners is key. The information like we get from Wiland helps us look at those segments and understand who are the potential customers, who should be in front of partners. But the other is the opposite side. Who shouldn't be here? What partners do the fans not want to hear from because it doesn't apply to them directly? Some of this is basic, right? Tim Hortons doesn't have a huge presence in the United States. A little, but not a huge. So Tim Hortons is not going to be doing a huge push to get in front of, South Florida fans. So on a more specific level, or broader level, people who are in the market for a big ticket item or who tend to shop at a certain type of store, understanding those preferences and how they engage with us is key because it also makes sure that the fans aren't getting messaging that's not relevant to them. And then there's some other categories that may not necessarily help you, but they're kind of interesting all the same, and I kind of like that there's all those little pieces in there, and if you've got as a significant case of ADD as I do, you kind of fall down a rabbit hole every time you look at these. And that's kind of it. So, in summary, working with Wiland with the data and insights that they provide us helps us provide, I hope, a better fan experience, for all of our fans, and more value for them and our partners. And I think we've got a second. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on our relationship with Wiland, our data strategy, fan engagement strategy, or if, like me, you blacked out for the last 15 minutes, my undergrad was in theology, we can talk about that. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Now, any questions?
With the future being global, and I'm not 100% sure on Wiland's strategy, but with how social media has kind of raised the global audience, is there opportunity for sort of looking at the social media interactions internationally and then targeting differently based on social media?
Yes, this is a short answer. I think there's a couple of things that make the social aspect a little complicated. One is understanding who is actually there. And so it's a different kind of unknown modeling where you look around behavior versus who the person is, right? If you ever see any partners where they can give you, oh, we have demography of social people, like they're scraping profiles of people who are lying anyway. So I'm not sure how helpful that is. But the behavior changes, right? Culturally, people interact differently. And better understanding that, I think, is absolutely a critical piece of this because it's not as hyper-specific as we otherwise might be in other platforms. But we certainly can learn from how different groups of people engage in different ways around our content, whether it's on or off the ice. And then there's also, we could talk for the rest of the day about privacy legislation and what you're pulling out and everything, and I'd really rather not because I do that too much anyway. But like understanding in different places how you can get that information, but absolutely, there's a lot to be learned from there. The only other thing I would say about that makes confusing is every 2 or 3 hours, the platforms change metrics and how they study and how they grow and what's engagement and who nobody knows. So keeping tabs on that and making it relevant is a little tricky, but if it was easy, they wouldn't pay us, so. No.
Hi, Karen.
Hey, Franco.
2 questions, 2 parts to this. How do you balance, going back to your contacting the fan, emailing the fan, maybe potentially creating friction? How do you balance your communication, your understanding of the fan, and that of the clubs? And secondly, what's that number? What's that balance? It's 70-30. You want 30% of the messaging coming from the NHL, the rest coming from the club.
Can't imagine why you want to ask that question. Our view is that we're not here to compete. When we share data, both directions, we don't market to fans that clubs share information on anonymously or otherwise. It's not our place. Clubs are there to, in our views, they're there to sell tickets and engage fans directly. We're not, right? I don't have very few tickets to sell. And so I don't know what the split is, but I do know that it matters more coming from the club. The other side of it, however, is that somebody buys a ticket, they end up on a club mailing list. No one's ending up on our mailing list unless they're actively coming to us and signing up, and no one's a fan of the league. People are a fan of a team or a player. And so if people have signed up for our newsletter, it may be a broader thing, they may be a deeper fan, but we don't feel that that's replacing what the clubs are providing. We try to personalize so that if you're a fan of a club and geographically in an area, we provide relevant information. But our view is if people are receiving and continuing to open, for example, our email, because if they stop opening, we stop sending it to them, but continue to open our email, that there's probably an engagement piece where they're most likely also engaging with a team and just looking for a broader base of information. So I don't know that there's a split directly, but our view is certainly that it's people are coming to us as opposed to us going to them, and therefore they probably want to stay there. And if they don't, they want to opt out, they opt out, and they continue to interact with you.
Would you be able to talk a little bit more about your relationship with Wiland and why you chose to pursue something like that rather than doing it in-house?
I am flattered that you think I could do that in-house. Thank you. Me and my department of 400 people are really pulling all that information in. It's about efficiency and time. There's a couple components. One, the actual aggregation of the data is beyond the scope of what our capabilities are right now, and it's an expensive endeavor to do if you're not then kind of enterprising it out and licensing it out. The other piece is that I was not joking before when I said I spent all day talking about privacy legislation. It is literally all we do, and we take it really seriously. We give everybody the benefit of the doubt, even if you ask something that you don't have a legal right for, you want to delete your account, you want information on it, but technically the legislation isn't in your favor, we're going to do it anyway, right? We're going to get the fan experience. Wiland shares that and gets that. And so we feel comfortable that they know the space around actual data collection better than we do. Our lawyers would probably disagree because they think they know everything better, but in general, than we do. And I think that it's about more efficiency and then support. We get help and clarification, explanation of things that you can't intuit. Weighting populations across the country based off of the information they are, because everything's a little disjointed, is tricky. The example we always use is I had an old provider of information from a couple years ago, and they said that there were more people in Buffalo, New York that bought sunscreen than in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I can't believe that that's true. And it's like, oh, it's a balancing issue. It's because more people in the Northeast fill out warranty cards or whatever it was. And it's like, okay, but what is that weighting? How do I account for that? And they can't tell us. Not helpful. But getting that support and that insight from Wiland has been helpful because they kind of understand that and can explain the stuff we couldn't just know. We couldn't study to know.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's all the time we have, but thank you so much, Karen. Great presentation.
Thank you very much.